You see the red and blue lights flash in your rearview mirror. Your stomach drops. Your heart starts pounding against your ribs like a hammer. It is the universal feeling of dread that every driver knows. In that moment, your mind starts racing with a million questions. Did I speed? Is a taillight out? Did I forget to renew my registration? But the most dangerous question isn't the one you ask yourself. It is the one the officer is about to ask you. And how you answer that single question can mean the difference between driving away with a warning or ending up in handcuffs. There is a specific set of words, a legal script that lawyers teach their clients for this exact moment. It is not a magic spell that makes the police vanish, but it is the closest thing to legal armor you will ever have. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what to say, what never to say, and the hidden constitutional psychology behind every traffic stop. My name is Sarah. For more than 15 years, I've studied police procedure, courtroom strategy, and civil rights law, breaking down hundreds of real traffic stops and court cases. What you're about to learn is the exact legal framework that decides who walks free and who gets charged. This is a survival guide for your rights. To understand why this works, we first need to see how most drivers accidentally destroy their own defense. Let me tell you about a driver named Elias. Elias is a good guy. He has a clean record, a steady job, and he's just trying to get home after a long Tuesday at work. He's driving his sedan down a suburban road, listening to a podcast, maybe going 5 or 6 miles over the limit. Nothing reckless, just keeping up with the flow of traffic. Suddenly, he sees the lights. Elias pulls over safely to the shoulder. He turns off the car, he puts his hands on the wheel. So far, Elias is doing everything right. But the moment the officer walks up to the window, Elias's brain betrays him. He's nervous. He wants to be helpful. He wants the officer to like him. This is the compliance instinct, and police are trained to use it. The officer shines a flashlight into the back seat and says, "Good evening. Do you know why I pulled you over?" Elias forces a smile and says, "I'm sorry, officer. I think I was going a little fast. Maybe 45 in a 40?" Stop. Right there. Elias just lost. He thinks he's being polite. He thinks honesty will get him a warning. But legally, he just confessed to a crime on a government recording. The officer doesn't need to prove Elias was speeding anymore. Elias just proved it for him. But it gets worse. The officer nods and asks, "Where are you coming from tonight, Elias?" Elias says, "Just coming from work, heading home." The officer says, "Work, huh? You look a little nervous. You haven't had anything to drink tonight, have you?" Elias is offended, but anxious. "No, absolutely not. I don't drink." The officer pauses, looks at Elias, and drops the big one. "Well, if you don't have anything to hide, you wouldn't mind if I took a quick look in your trunk, right?" Elias hesitates. He knows he has nothing illegal in the car, just his gym bag and some groceries. He thinks, if I say no, I'll look guilty. If I say yes, he'll see I'm innocent and let me go. So Elias says, "Sure, go ahead." Elias gets out of the car. The officer searches the trunk. He searches the back seat. He searches the glove box. 20 minutes pass. Elias is standing on the side of the road, humiliated while neighbors drive by and stare. Finally, the officer finds nothing. He comes back, hands Elias a $250 speeding ticket, and says, "Drive safe." Elias drives away angry, late, and poorer. He feels like the system failed him. But the truth is, Elias failed the system. He voluntarily gave up every right that was designed to protect him. Now, let's rewind that entire scenario. Let's put you in the driver's seat. But this time, you're armed with the correct legal script. This time, you understand two critical legal concepts: reasonable suspicion and plain view. Reasonable suspicion is the legal standard an officer needs to pull you over. They need a specific, articulable reason to stop you. A broken taillight, speeding, swerving. They cannot pull you over just on a hunch. However, once they have stopped you, their goal shifts from traffic enforcement to criminal investigation. They're looking for plain view evidence. This means if they can see something illegal from the window, like a weapon or an open container, they don't need a warrant to enter the car. But more importantly, they're fishing for verbal evidence. They want you to admit to something they can't see. So, let's replay the stop. The lights flash, you pull over safely. Turn off the engine, turn on the dome light if it's night, roll down the window only part way, enough to pass documents, but not enough to easily stick a head inside. Put your hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. The officer approaches. Good evening. Do you know why I pulled you over? This is the trap. If you guess, you confess. Instead, you say the first line of the script. You look the officer in the eye, stay calm, and say, "No, officer, why did you pull me over?" This is not rude. It is not argumentative. It puts the burden back on the officer to state the legal justification for the stop. The officer says, "I clocked you doing 45 and a 40. Now you have a choice. You can apologize, or you can stay silent. But generally, lawyers advise you to simply say, "I see." Don't admit it. Don't deny it. Now comes the investigation phase. The officer asks, "Where are you coming from? Where are you headed?" These seem like small talk questions. They're not. They're consistency checks. If you say work, but you're driving away from the business district, that's suspicious. If you stutter, that's suspicious. You do not have to answer these questions, but you also don't want to scream, "I plead the fifth" immediately, because that escalates the tension. Instead, use the pivot technique. You say, "I'm just focused on getting home right now, officer." Or, if he keeps pressing, you use the second line of the script. "Officer, I'd prefer not to answer any questions. I'd just like to be on my way." This is a polite but firm assertion of your rights. Now, let's say the officer isn't satisfied. He wants to search. He asks, "You don't have any weapons or drugs in the car, do you?" You say, "No, sir." He says, "Do you mind if I take a look just to be sure?" This is the critical moment. This is where Elias failed. The officer is asking for consent because he likely doesn't have probable cause. If he had probable cause, like the smell of contraband or something in plain view, he wouldn't be asking. He'd just be searching. By asking, he's telling you he needs your permission to proceed. Your answer must be clear, unequivocal, and recorded. You say the third line of the script. "I do not consent to any searches." Say it exactly like that. Don't say, "I guess not." Don't say, "Well, I'm in a hurry." Say, "I do not consent to any searches." Now, one of two things will happen. Scenario A, the officer respects your rights, grumbles a bit, writes your ticket, and leaves. Scenario B, the officer searches you anyway. Wait, what? Yes, this happens. Police officers sometimes search without consent, or they claim they have probable cause when they don't. Here is the most important rule of the road. Never physically resist a police officer. You fight the case in the courtroom, not on the roadside. If you say, "I do not consent," and he searches anyway, don't try to stop him. Don't scream. Just stand back and remain silent. Because you clearly stated, "I do not consent," any evidence he finds might be thrown out of court later because the search was illegal. But if you had said, "Sure, go ahead," like Elias did, then everything he finds is admissible even if the search was originally bogus. Your consent cures his constitutional mistake. Never cure the officer's mistake. Now, there is a dangerous exception we need to talk about. It's called Pennsylvania versus Mims. This is a Supreme Court case that surprises almost everyone. If an officer orders you to get out of the car, you must get out of the car. Many people think they can lock the doors and refuse to exit until the officer shows a warrant. This is false. The Supreme Court has ruled that for officer safety, police can order a driver out of a vehicle during a lawful traffic stop without a warrant. If you refuse this order, you can be arrested for obstruction or resisting. So, If the officer says, "Step out of the vehicle," you say, "I will comply with your order to step out, but I'm remaining silent and I do not consent to any searches." You're physically complying, but legally protecting yourself. There's one more sophisticated legal tool you should know about. It comes from a case called Rodriguez versus United States. In this case, the Supreme Court ruled that a traffic stop cannot last longer than the time reasonably necessary to address the traffic violation. Police cannot hold you on the side of the road for an extra hour just to wait for a canine drug dog to arrive, unless they have new reasonable suspicion. So, if the officer has your license and is just sitting in his car for 20 minutes doing nothing, or if he's asking you endless questions about your high school history, he might be violating the Rodriguez rule. In this situation, you can ask the fourth line of the script. "Officer, am I free to go?"
Officer, is there a reason for the delay? If he says, "No, you are not free to go," you simply say, "I would like to leave as soon as my citation is issued." This creates a record that you are being held against your will for longer than necessary. Let's recap the 4 magic phrases. 1. No, officer, why did you pull me over? Don't guess. 2. I'd prefer not to answer any questions. Don't chat. 3. I do not consent to any searches. Don't help. 4. Am I free to go? Don't linger. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. If I say all this, won't the cop get angry? Won't he write me a ticket instead of giving me a warning? Maybe. Yes, asserting your rights can sometimes irritate an officer who is used to total compliance. And if you are 100% sure you only have a broken tail light, and you are 100% sure the officer is just being nice, maybe you decide to just be chatty. That is your judgment call. But remember this. You cannot talk your way out of a ticket, but you can talk your way into a jail cell. Police officers are professionals trained in interrogation. You are an amateur. Do not play their game. The cool guy strategy, where you try to bond with the officer, works in movies. In real life, body cameras are rolling, and quotas are real in many places. The safest legal strategy is always silence and non-consent. Also, keep in mind the passenger rule. If you are a passenger in a car that gets pulled over, you have rights too. Under Maryland v. Wilson, officers can order passengers out of the car too, just like the driver. But, just like the driver, you have the right to remain silent. Officers often separate the driver and passenger to see if their stories match. He said you came from a bar, but you said the movies. Who's lying? The correct answer for a passenger is, "Officer, I don't want to answer questions. Am I free to leave?" It feels awkward. It feels rude. We are socialized to be polite to authority. But the Constitution is not a rude document. It is a document written by people who had bad experiences with soldiers searching their homes and wagons. Using your rights is the most American thing you can do. So, next time you see those lights, take a deep breath. Keep your hands visible. Be polite, but be firm. Don't be Elias. Be the driver who knows the script. Drive safe, stay educated, and remember that your rights are like muscles. If you don't use them, you lose them. If you found this breakdown helpful, share it with a new driver in your family. It might just save them a lot more than a ticket. Thanks for watching.